the mental side of the game becomes really decisive. This is the real difference between those who win and those who lose. Visualization without specificity is useless. The same as training without connection to the action is absolutely non-efficient. The only difference between dominant and non-dominant foot is in the amount of brain control. Cognitive intervention allows to tap directly into the muscle memory of specific action. And we consistently show that improvement can reach up to 30%, again, measured on the pitch.
Hello coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach podcast interview. Today we are joined by Dr. Konstantin Sonkin, co-founder and CEO of i-BrainTech, a company that is leveraging the power of applied science and neurotraining to radically enhance cognitive functioning in the game. They're working with some top clubs including Philadelphia Union, Benfica, Juventus, and today we want to talk about the role of cognitive functioning and how it plays a part in a football environment. i-BrainTech have kindly sponsored the podcast, so a huge thanks for that. There's also information and links below for i-BrainTech, and at the halfway point I will give a little bit more information about what they do. There are some areas that we wanted to challenge in terms of not specifically the product, but more in terms of how it is positioned in the marketplace and how it is applied in an overall football environment. We try to do that in a really respectful way. I hope it comes across that way, and a massive thank you for Dr. Konstantin for embracing this conversation. So let me know what you think. Please like, please subscribe, please comment below. Thank you so much for all the support. Here we go, cognitive training in a football environment. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. Really excited to chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Arsene Wenger said about the brain being the next frontier of training, but I don't feel as if that's a new quote. I feel as if this has been something that the coaching community has been looking at or looking for over the last 5 or 10 years. So with your breakthrough at i-BrainTech, what has led to that breakthrough, and what has led to increasing finally the landscape of brain training?
I think this is very important and instrumental question, because as we as sports and science professionals develop the whole science around sports and exercise, the athletes truly hitting the physical limits of the body. So we see in professional sports, most of athletes are incredible developed physically. So in this environment, the mental side of the game becomes really decisive. This is the real difference between those who win and those who lose. And because now everyone is looking into that, including sports science, head coach, and general managers, and so little actual data-driven and scientific information is available in the domain. So people really frustrated because it is a very noisy area. And me, as a scientist, as a neuroscience, as brain scientist on one hand, and professional global entrepreneur on another hand, I really felt a need to bring some clarity into the domain of mind-body connection from the scientific point of view. And in that journey, we experienced so many conversations and skepticism and open discussions, let's say. And I really appreciate and welcome that, because this is what is needed to clarify what can be trained and what can't be trained, what should be the conditions for efficient transfer to the on-the-field performance, and what differentiate efficient interventions, what we call in science all training, efficient training versus inefficient one. So our breakthrough is based on the understanding that every training for sports should be data-driven, validated, and has a validated transfer to the field. We make it based on several decades of research, how our brain controls movement. This motor control capacity of the brain is what we know, And this motor control capacity of the brain, we know how to measure and how to train and enhance.
Well, this is a great start, because I really, really like that piece about owning the fact that there are frustrations and skepticism and tension out there in the football world. And I'm going to challenge some of those today, because we do try to be as forward thinking as possible on our podcast and try to get, but also you mentioned a lot of noise. And I think football is in this space at the minute where it's a very capitalism driven model. And there's a lot of marketing out there, not just in tech, but also in coaching theories. So let's get stuck into that today. But before we do, I would love to get a rundown of what iBrainTech does on a daily basis. When you're talking about that data-driven, that validated approach, what does iBrainTech bring?
iBrain is actually a training environment controlled by your brain signals. So we utilize very well-known concept of visualization. Visualization is used widely across different modalities, would it be sports psychology, interventions, medical interventions, return to play interventions, and even coaches encourage players to visualize important plays before the game. So why it helps? Why we all know that before important penalty kick, you take the ball, you close your eyes, you imagine how you're going to kick the ball, and the worst thing you can do to change your mind when you're already running towards the ball. Because then the kick would be 100% awful. Why is it so? Why? From neuroscientific point of view, it is so easy to explain. Because when you visualize an action, our brain does exactly the same planning, exactly the same work as before actual movement. You literally can't differentiate. You do scans, you can't differentiate. So our planning of the movement is always done before the actual movement. And the same work is done for visualization and for the real movement. But visualization should be very immersive and very, specific. Not just seeing scenes on screen, but rather imagining in all details. Okay? If it's true, if you know how to decode or detect that activity of the brain associated with visualization for this specific individual, and you can do that in real time, then you can convert that into the real brain training station, brain gym if you want, right? So you can visualize actions, immediately you see how well you did that. So you can do it better and better, activating your brain areas on the higher and higher levels that in turn exercise and build structures inside the brain directly connected to specific actions on the field. This is what iBrain is about. It is a visualization powered by neurotechnology, allowing sport-specific visualization in real time and controlling behavior of the avatar with your mind effort, building these areas of the brain. The same way we go to the gym, we work on specific muscle structure, and we see how this muscle structure grows. The same applies to the brain training. We train specific areas in the brain associated with the specific movements, and we see and track how this muscle memory grows in intensity and volume.
So with that specificity, is that position specific? Is that specific to the coaches designing the game model? Is that specific to a location on the pitch? Or what does that look like does each individual have a different set to go through?
And this is so important question. Thank you for that. Because visualization without specificity is useless. The same as training without connection to the action is absolutely non-efficient. We as humans, we don't what we call code an action in general. We code this specific kick from this specific position to this specific even teammate. This is how we code actions. And this is how we must train. Of course, left back will have his own program, and striker will have a finishing program, right? Different actions would be introduced. And we have a standard library of more than 500 drills But of course, with top teams, we work with coaching staff who sends us specific videos of specific system of attack. And then each player rehearse their role in this system, right? That allows them to add hundreds of repetitions, learning by heart, recording on the muscle memory what they should do, what is right in terms of the strategy of this coaching staff. And as we know, it can differ, right? For this coach, this decision is right, but for another coach, this decision is wrong. So it very much should be aligned with the strategy of the head coach.
Can you tell us a little bit about AI-powered neurofeedback? I find this I'm fascinated about. How does this train the brain like a muscle that you referenced?
So as I mentioned before, when you visualize actions, you do exactly the same activity or work in your brain to prepare the movement. So AI actually decodes specific intensity of visualization, or let's say quality of the visualization. So the better you visualize, the higher levels associated to that activity, to prepare that activity, the better is the performance of the avatar in the training environment. So you can train to add more reps when you're young and you want to improve consistency of your actions, right? You're a good player, you're already young, you're already like 15 years old, 14 years old, you know how to play soccer and you know best practices, but for some reason you can put in only 2 or 3 out of 10 desired actions. So the only reason for that inconsistency is lack of muscle memory that you acquire with repetitions. And as we referred before, visualization actually can help you to add so many more reps in addition to actually taking on the field to acquire skills faster. If some professional player is injured, he can't train on the pitch and he loses that muscle memory, right? What we call, even we feel that they are rusty after coming back after a couple of months. So the rustiness is based on disconnect between mind and the body. So you need to regain this motor control, and you can actually protect this muscle memory if you rehearse that actions during that injury period. So that AI system really converts visualization into the brain gym tailored to the specific need of a player.
All right, $1 million question. Let's say I'm a general manager and a president of a club, and I'm bringing this in for elite level players. And I understand the return to play policies, but if I'm looking at this from a player development standpoint, how would, again, everyone's talking in this ROI language today and trying to get a return on everything. What would you say would be, how would you measure success or progress in this area as a club?
This is my favorite one because this is the real intersection of business and science. This is where I belong. And let me take you just a little bit conceptually. How we know that anything works. How we know that anything in life is impactful. We need, and it's so important because very often we rely just on correlations or on our feeling and intuition. But in order to prove something, you need to do 3 things. First, you need to show that if you train in a training environment, that you're improving there. So you're able even to progress there. This is number 1. And I see you taking notes. It's very important for everyone, every activity in our lives. Second, you need to show that improvement in the training environment is actually supported by improvement in the organ that you're training. For instance, it's not enough that you can push more weight, right, on the bench. You also need to see that your muscle strength and muscle volume improve. The same for the brain. You need to show that this organ that you claim to train is actually being evolved, right? Evolving over time thanks to the intervention. And the most importantly, you need to connect that impact on the organ to your end result. and in our case, in the performance domain, to the on-the-field performance. And this transfer to the field is so difficult to validate and so rarely being validated, not only in cognitive domain. I always ask physical therapists or athletic trainers, do you do squats with your players? They say, of course. I say, why? Do you have any paper that proves that doing better squats or more squats is beneficial for football players? Do you have any paper on earth? No. Why do you do that? Because it's a custom. Okay. But we in sports still are so early in our real understanding. Only top clubs have these answers about transfer on the field. But we want to set a standard. And we always do that justification. We see improvement in iBrain. We see improvement in the brain because we measure it. And we always do that translation to the field. We either use game data and game stats to connect. If we're training this striker to finish, right, from specific positions, we correlate to amount of goals and amount of good passes he's doing from that location with this automatic, we call it automatically executed actions, right? Acquired skills. If we train, a winger to use the weak foot more efficient, so we want to see that he is doing more passes and act more accurately with his weak foot. We can do it with their stats available in the club, but we can also did that before with baseline testing. You take a team, for instance, under 19 team, and you baseline test the whole team with standard actions, long balls, free kicks, right? Measured on the pitch. You record that, then you split the team in two halves. One half is doing regular training, another half regular training plus iBrain for extended period of time, let's say 4 months, and then you baseline them again, and then you compare what happens with the control group and what happens with the iBrain group, let's say. And we consistently, in many studies around the world, have been showing that improvement of the intervention group is significantly higher than the control group. And I will even tell you, in most of academy teams, after 4 months of training, regular training, control group doesn't show any change. Literally. Because they're already 19 years old or 17 years old. They know how to kick the ball, and this is their potential. They can train twice a week, they can train 5 times a week. But their improvement is marginal. How much you can improve them? 10%? No way. But with cognitive intervention, it's just mind-blowing. Cognitive intervention allows to tap directly into the muscle memory of specific action. And we consistently show that improvement can reach up to 30%, again, measured on the pitch. Because in addition to 10, 20 long balls that you can do during the training session, you can add hundreds of repetitions that you do visually. So that stimulates the brain with the enormous 10-fold, 20-fold multiplier. So this is where we're standing, and we really want to make a point of data-driven and transferable interventions that should enter sports.
Hello coaches, we'll take a quick break here. If you are enjoying this interview and you would like more information on iBrainTech, they have kindly sponsored the podcast and supported the work. So please check out the links below to find out a little bit more about their product. iBrainTech is redefining brain training as an essential pillar of peak performance and recovery, just like physical exercise. The neurotechnology allows athletes to control an immersive sports video game with their minds, translating brain activity into real-time actions to strengthen neural pathways. This breakthrough enhances both cognition and movement and is trusted by elite clubs in Serie A, La Liga and MLS. Some of the clubs they work with include Benfica, Juventus, Philadelphia Union and Leganes, and they recently won the 2023 Innovation of the Year Award for their collaboration with Juventus. Please check the links below for more information, and a huge thanks to iBrainTech for sponsoring the episode. I guess where I'm having the challenge is technical training 20 years ago was kind of a cool thing. Now we move back on that because of the brain, because of decision making. Nothing's happening in isolation. So are we saying now that we should go back to technical training alongside brain training? Is that not a compartmentalization of a training process, but then trying to integrate it with a conclusion?
It's very well said. This is why I don't like this type of testing, right? And I always prefer to connect to specific actions measured in the game, right? And it's difficult to argue that stats is not important. Probably stats are important, especially in the game stats, right? And the goals in the end of the day and assists, they speak more loudly than everything else. And if you have a tool that actually, we do not train specific actions. We train the brain to support actions more consistently. So we train muscle memory for consistency. This is all we do. And of course, it very much depends on what the coach wants us to allow their players to work on, right? So what is the most important? Some coaches decide to work on strength. Some coaches decide to work on weaknesses of their star players. It very much depends. And just what I'm saying is that game will show and stats will show. And if a player is more confident, is more autonomous with his motor control of his actions, and he knows what to do in every moment because he rehearsed that millions of times already. So he's much more free to look around, not look at the ball. He knows that he needs from that position to pass the ball down the line, and he is not loaded with all that unnecessary information. Now he can be more free to see the field and to make better decisions. Is it direct outcome of what we're training? It's indirect outcome because we develop this muscle of the brain to allow coaches to develop, to use this new capacity for the better performance, right? We always work together. You can think about us as athletic trainers for their mind. It's then coach's job to utilize or not utilize that capacity.
Yeah, this is a great chat because then I think that leads to an issue with the alignment of using it in the environment. This is what I see with a lot of additional or supplementary training is that if the piece of supplementary training isn't impacting, a lot of people then blame the training environment.
And I believe that technology has the mission to democratize access to the best practices. This is number one. Number two is that we are part of the infrastructure of the club. Not at all supplementary. I would say any club who believes that investment in their assets, which includes their youth and their pros, their health and their management, mental side should be covered. It's just a must. Otherwise, I don't know how can we call ourselves modern soccer coaches. Okay, and secondly, I want to try to answer you. We work with academy players that have very different routine. We work with injured players who are like very on different schedule as well. Of course, I do understand the strict limitations and the pressure that every head coach and his staff experience during the season. And yes, probably it's not the right environment to start rolling out this type of infrastructure. I think it's the role of general manager to think broadly about the organization and say, let's start with our B team, with our C team, with our youth, with our selected players. Let's start with injured players. Let's see how it rolls out where we can really integrate it without that much pressure, right? And where people don't change every season. And then with that being validated and adopted, then we go to their first team modalities because we know where and how that can be integrated to the best benefits of our organization. We never advise even first team players to adopt it first, but we have that quite often as well. Time is not an issue. Issue is always a priority. If an organization puts priority on the asset development and long-term success versus winning next match, then there is different story. There is different mentality in the club. If it's just match to match, and then if we're out and everyone, coach is sacked and everything is changed, this is not the type of organization. This is just not the modern organization.
That's a common organization, though. There's one that's is trying to win on Saturday. Unfortunately, that's the modern game.
I don't know. It very much depends who you want to be. Who is a person, as a coach, as a manager you want to be? Because return on investment is never in the one season. Return on investment is always through merchandise sales, through selling of players. And we work with so many top clubs, and we know that actually it is very important to win games and play in Champions League. But long term, it's very important to have the strong brand, to have the strong business model, to have strong return on investment. And technology allows clubs to increase multiples on their evaluation dramatically, because technology is something that is scalable, that can be distributed around the whole ecosystem and could allow consolidate all data streams and all best practices in a structured way. This is how really big clubs have been built on a very professional level.
I completely agree with you. I think that it is the director of football, president, whoever it is, has the responsibility to align it. But I also want to stay on this point, because this is a big challenge, because as you go up the leadership models, you normally go a degree of separation away from, I guess, football intelligence, where it becomes more business and it becomes more ROI. So sometimes the coach gets the blame, but the coach is under immense pressure from above, and there's sometimes tension there. And I think that's where we're at in a lot of clubs that are commercially driven. So when you work with world-class clubs, what are some ways that they work around that, or what are some ways that you help them solve that?
It's an excellent question. I can share just some experiences, right? Because I can't generalize. Yeah. Still, every club is almost like separate kingdom, right? Every big club is the whole new universe. But usually we just ask, what job we can do for you? How can we help? How can we really help? We don't want to be burdened. Now, we don't want you to think that, this cognitive stuff, we need to put another 2 hours a week, how to schedule, I'm so pressed. No, it's not the case. We can help you with your injured ACL guys. You have 2 recently in October, and you want to support them. You pay them $10 million, and you don't know what to do with them, and they are so depressed because they can't play. This is what they love. And iBrain can come in and say, buddy, don't worry. We'll give you opportunity to play and rehearse all the team attacks. So the moment you're ready, cleared by your medical staff, you're ready to perform because you know everything you're in. Isn't it good for a coach? Isn't it good for a mentality? They love it. There is no point of issue of time. They're half an hour before just to do iBrain, because they say, no, I'm not just sitting on a bench. I'm also doing my job. I'm also playing soccer. I'm also putting my weight in. Right? This is one time. Can we help some young stars to develop faster so they can be transferred to their own loan to the big clubs? Can we help them? Sometimes it's just a weak foot that is so underdeveloped. And why weak foot was not developed? Because they're shy. It's pure psychology. Because they're young and shy. It is just human factor. You have to do reps to acquire a skill. This is a well-known thing. We can help him to shine brighter. Okay, we can allow people to fulfill their potential. Isn't it a burden? It is not a burden. It is an opportunity. And for every young star, we develop specific program and we support his career development. So the club, they move between clubs, we take iBrain with them. Because this is now the part of their routine and not additional training modality at all. This is the core who they are, because they want to develop the physical and cognitive together. And then once the benefit is clear, it's only a matter of scale. If it's organized well, it's just a part of the gym. So you have a gym and you have brain gym, and you have few guys or your athletic trainers, a physio, certified brain coaches. And of course you do just the standard routine. Game +1, you can't put in a lot of load physically, no problem. You can do a little bit of video, a little bit of a cognitive, right? To relax your body, but still do sport-specific, football-specific work. We never want to be burdened. We always want to understand deeply the real needs of the professional team and help them in their daily life.
Yeah, the piece on the left foot, and I got asked this, is improving your left foot with visualization. And I'm going to push back a little bit on that. Like, surely you need more. Surely that watching or doing any form of visualization will not lead to a direct result.
Do you have any evidence to claim that?
Do I have any evidence to claim it? No, not really.
Okay. So let's stick to our scientifically based claims, okay? And the scientifically based claim says, weak foot, I will call it, it's just easier to pronounce.
Yeah.
Is the same foot, the same amount of physical conditioning, you available for the foot, the same strength, the same muscle, everything, the same. What's the difference? The only difference between dominant and non-dominant foot is in the amount of brain control, available for that limb. And how you develop this brain control? You develop brain control with repetitions. This is what you do. You repeat, you rehearse, and you do that mostly on the pitch, right? This is what you do. This is what you actually train. Think about, as a coach, think about that. Most of the time when you do train on the pitch and you have your training sessions with your players on the pitch, what do you really train? What do you really train? Do you train their bodies? Do you train their psychology? What do you train? Why do you spend time on the pitch with your players? What do you want from them? What do you want them to develop? And the real answer is that you are developing their brain. This is what you are training. You are training their brain. You call it muscle memory, but muscle doesn't have any memory. Memory is in the brain. So you are actually training their brain, their memory, their sport-specific skills recorded in the brain. So I'm telling you that visualization, in case there is a decent level of professional understanding how to execute action, can help you to solidify that execution. Of course, if a person doesn't know how to use his weak foot, it will not help. But if there is enough knowledge to put 2 or 3 balls out of 10 where is intended, so there is a skill, but there is no reliability of the skill, visualization that can help dramatically. And I have evidence to show you. Also, if you can train on the pitch, then, and if it is so easy solution, probably we would have not speaking about that at the moment. But there is a known and acute need, especially in modern youth players, to develop their weak foot. And for some reason, coaching system can't solve that fully, right? So this is where we are to help you, but never instead of training on the pitch, always in addition.
So they need a base level of, they need to be decent on their left foot to improve it. But then right. You're saying about the coach, like coaches can't solve it. But then, like what's the evidence that what type of coach can solve it, or why a coach can't solve it versus a player that's talented? Is that not trying to create an opportunity or a hole in the market where a coach can't do X? In reality, coach can't solve everything anyway, and we don't want coach to solve everything. Player's going to have to eventually step up and play.
Right. Okay. It's also a valid point.
But do you not think that when you're looking from a marketing language and saying that, okay, well, listen, we can do this, but then
the coach, because coaches are getting a ton of information thrown at them and products. So when the coach is going to say, I've got something that can actually make his right foot better or left foot better, I think that's the tension that exists. It's happened with data. It's happened with sports science. I see it happening with cognitive training, is that you're over promising on that side. And then people get in and they realize that there's a ton of work to be done on this here. So the marketing and the actual practicality of life sometimes get in the way. And I really think, do you disagree with that?
No, I agree with that. I'm a scientist, so I'm with you. I do agree. Yeah. We have an agreement. Yes, sometimes marketing language is too much, but this is the rules of the game, right? If you say, you know what, we have evidence to improve you 3.5%, no one reads that, right? But this is the rules of the game. And of course, when we progress with the real cooperation, we always make it very clear, and we always do their intake forums and do deep programming and analytics before we start. And we make expectations of all sides crystal clear. What can be done and what can't be done. Because for the business, it's very easy. If you really want to stay in business for long enough, you have to deliver. If you don't deliver on your promise, it will be immediately known. So as a professional entrepreneur, I agree with you. Yes, we have to align expectations, and we should never overpromise. We should just be professional and deliver on our promise. And I'm just referring to the problem of weak foot being predominantly mental. So mental solutions should be involved in fixing that problem.
I don't doubt your ability at i-BrainTech to deliver, and that's one of the, you've been really open on dealing with the questions and having the conversation, having the debate. But I want to stay on it just in terms of maybe it's even just a philosophical debate. But do you think, because the coaches are getting hammered that they're not using psychology and that they're not equipped to deal with cognitive training, they're not equipped to deal with science, they're not equipped to deal with mental health. Do we not owe it to a degree of education with our business or our selling? Should we not have, not even a code of ethics, but should we not have practices in place that should actually make the landscape more realistic? Where it's very, very hard. 99% of what you said today, I agree with. Like, if cognitive, and everyone's saying about improving it, we should prioritize it. What I would debate would be the fact of, again, it's life. You said it's the game. I see it. I do see it. But do we not have a responsibility to be a bit more honest about how complex learning is, environments are, the fact that you need this align with training, align with staffing, align with leadership models?
We have to. This is what is my job predominantly. I'm flying all over the world, speaking at the conferences exactly about that. There is no miracle. There is no golden touch. Now this technology will fix you and it will make you new message. No, it will not happen. It will simply not happen. Yeah. Right? And we need to be clear and in simple words, educate the professional community what can be done and what can't be done. Most of the things can't be done, unfortunately, because we still, first of all, complexity of soccer is enormous. And secondly, our understanding of our brain is very limited. So having said that, we still have small interventions that are useful and can work already today. In addition to that, I think it's time for us to bring this visibility and to bring this dimension of cognitive into the holistic picture of soccer and holistic picture of player development, because it is important modality. And at the moment, it's complete black box. It is complete darkness. And I have my mission to bring some light, to allow coaching staff and analytics and sports science to have at least some visibility of what's happening there. And if you say training is not for us, it's fine. You can use iBrain or other data-driven technologies to at least see what's happening there, to track some level of activation, level of cognitive readiness and performance. It is important to put that in our models, because very often we see players as machines, very mechanically, right? This feature, that feature, but they're also people. How often we see excellent players fit, not delivering on the pitch, even willing to disappear on the pitch. What happened? And then we figure out that stress, lack of sleep, maybe going through divorce or other conditions. But we could have known that if we have that visibility and data about their brain states. And of course, emotions also visible in the brain data.
On that topic, then, is there any risk? I mean, you've got Adam Codron said that he talked about the niche about the physical load, about your software taking the physical load off. But is there any concern about cognitive load with not emotion that you talked about, but also just overloading players with information? What's your thoughts on that?
It is a very important topic. Still not very well studied or understood in the professional community. Definitely there is a phenomenon of players being overwhelmed because of stress, because of pressure, because of so many activities they have to undergo. And this is why, for instance, I always put a sensor on the area of the brain responsible for alertness and anxiety. If I see that, for instance, in our system, if we see that player is not ready, is like not alert and overwhelmed with stress, then the avatar will be disconnected automatically and the training will be discontinued. So it's very important to take that into account. Brain health is fundamentally required for any training. It's like you don't train injured athlete, right? The same for the mentality. You don't train overloaded or mentally not well people. So this is the first factor. But again, it's all about visibility. We must bring that visibility into the picture of sports.
Can you talk a little bit about the strategy and the goal behind democratizing, how you do that?
100%. So, and I recall in the early days of neuroscience for soccer, we saw some neuroscientists really going to the clubs and doing some professional training on the pitch, off the pitch, right? And only few top clubs can afford that type of intervention. So it creates difference between different clubs or different level of athletes or different countries for access to the best practices of the game. And I think it is not what we want to solidify in the professional community. And this is why I think technology is the best practices converted into their highly scalable solutions, being affordable to professional settings and also academy settings and also semi-professional, collegial athletes as well. Of course, different packages, different tailoring program can be available, but in the nutshell, you need to put all these neuroscientists inside computer and not to waste time on paying their salaries.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that if in the US they need a yearly cognitive seminar convention around decision making, and I think so, but the problem with the US market is because it's so lucrative for outside people coming in, outside companies coming in, the tension exists that the people who are inside it are probably oversold to, and so feel as if they're being exploited constantly. And that creates a tension for trying to bring in innovative ideas that I think are really, really important to our landscape like that. And I think we should talk about that there because it makes it hard for them to get in.
Wow, I can't agree more. This is my strong feeling. When we come in and we show all the evidence, people already are so skeptical because they already experienced and they burned, right? So now you need to fix all the mistakes of your colleagues, let's say, and it is problematic. But it's also a good skepticism. I think this is the barrier, and sports is a high-stake business and a high-stake environment. So it's definitely understood that every intervention should be validated, and we need to be professional. On another hand, I would need to mention that I participated in the MLS Sports Physician Symposium in Miami, end of 2024, and the commissioner of MLS declared that brain health is one of the priorities of their league for the next season. So for me, it says that there is a big need to better understand that dimension of the game. Nevertheless, I would also testify that out of hundreds of physicians in the room participating in this symposium, I was nearly the one neuroscientist. So more and more education of the market, of the professional community is required to really better understand what's doable and what's not, and what is the difference between validated and scientifically backed interventions and the noise.
Brilliant. Great way to finish it. Dr. Konstantin, thanks so much. We'll do it again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.